أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل وسلم على نبينا محمد Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome, dear Celebrate Mercy family and viewers. Welcome to our Friday Gems program. Today we are so blessed to have our beloved Qari Senan with us once again, followed by Ustadha Hosai Mojaddidi, who will be joining us for our lesson today. Mashallah, it is always a privilege to be here as your host. Celebrate Mercy is where we get together. We have gotten together with one mission, and that is to help people discover the truth about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and transform their lives through his beautiful example and teachings. Alhamdulillah, what a beautiful mission. And we achieve our mission through these three avenues, through our curated content, which includes videos, articles, social media, and publications, our transformative experiences, which are online and in person. You are experiencing one of those experiences right now. And through our innovative campaigns, where we mobilize the community to embody the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's example. And what is this beautiful program called Friday Gems? It is our weekly live online program. It is your weekly reboot, reset, weekly Iman motivational, session, inshallah. It's for the busy adult. It's a great way to maintain a consistent connection with God and His beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on the most blessed day of the week. Alhamdulillah. And of course, all of our programs that we do here at Celebrate Mercy, you can always go back and watch them, or you can watch the recording if you missed the live program. Please do continue to go back and watch. We have an amazing collection of programs for you. And remember to continue to guide others to goodness. It is so easy today in this day and age, even if you have the busiest schedule, even if you cannot leave your home, you can use the powerful tool that Allah has given us, social media, to guide others to goodness and reap the rewards as well. We are on Instagram, X, and Facebook. All you have to do is just share our page and just remind people to subscribe, follow, so they never miss a program. And if you are in the US, you can get a text. So to triple down to make sure you do not miss a live program, all you have to do is text the word celebrate to 67053, inshallah. Without further ado, on this amazing, blessed day, it is time for our Surat al-Kahf recitation. And I would like to introduce our beloved Qari Senan Hafez, who was born and raised in the UAE and has loved the Quran since he was 4 years old. He has a master's in business administration and enjoys reciting the Quran and spreading the recitation and praying for hearts to soften by the words of Allah. Please welcome our Qari Senan. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I think you're on mute.
Yes, that's true. I'm doubly muted. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sister Fatima, jazakumullahu khaira for these programs, beautiful programs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala benefit us all from this khair. And inshallah, we'll start with the recitation of Surat al-Kahf bi'idhnillah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا شديدا من لدنه ويبشر المؤمنين الذين يعملون الصالحات أن لهم أجرا حسنا ماكثين فيه أبدا وينذر الذين قالوا اتخذ الله ولدا ما لهم به من علم ولا لآبائهم كبرت كلمة تخرج من أفواههم إن يقولون إلا كذبا فلعلك باخع نفسك على آثارهم إن لم يؤمنوا بهذا الحديث أسفا إنا جعلنا ما على الأرض زينة لها لنبلوهم أيهم أحسن عملا وإنا لجاعلون ما عليها صعيدا جرزا أم حسبت أن أصحاب الكهف والرقيم كانوا من آياتنا عجبا إذ أوى الفتية إلى الكهف فقالوا ربنا آتنا من لدنك رحمة وهيئ لنا من أمرنا رشدا فضربنا على آذانهم في الكهف سنين عددا ثم بعثناهم لنعلم أي الحزبين أحصى لما لبثوا أمدا نحن نقص عليك نبأهم بالحق إنهم فتية آمنوا بربهم وزدناهم هدى وربطنا على قلوبهم إذ قاموا فقالوا ربنا رب السماوات والأرض لن ندعو من دونه إلها لقد قلنا إذا شططا هؤلاء قومنا اتخذوا من دونه آلهة لولا يأتون عليهم بسلطان بين فمن أظلم ممن افترى على الله كذبا وإذ اعتزلتموهم وما يعبدون إلا الله فأووا إلى الكهف ينشر لكم ربكم من رحمته ويهيئ لكم من أمركم مرفقا وترى الشمس إذا طلعت تزاور عن كهفهم ذات اليمين وإذا غربت تقرضهم ذات الشمال وهم في فجوة منه ذلك من آيات الله من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا وتحسبهم أيقاظا وهم رقود ونقلبهم ذات اليمين وذات الشمال وكلبهم باسط ذراعيه بالوصيد لو اطلعت عليهم لوليت منهم فرارا ولملئت منهم رعبا وكذلك بعثناهم ليتساءلوا بينهم قال قائل منهم كم لبثتم قالوا لبثنا يوما أو بعض يوم قالوا ربكم أعلم بما لبثتم فابعثوا أحدكم بورقكم هذه إلى المدينة فلينظر أيها أزكى طعاما فليأتكم برزق منه وليتلطف ولا يشعرن بكم أحدا إنهم إن يظهروا عليكم يرجموكم أو يعيدوكم في ملتهم ولن تفلحوا إذا أبدا وكذلك أعثرنا عليهم ليعلموا أن وعد الله حق وأن الساعة لا ريب فيها إذ يتنازعون بينهم أمرهم فقالوا ابنوا عليهم بنيانا ربهم أعلم بهم قال الذين غلبوا على أمرهم لنتخذن عليهم مسجدا سيقولون 3 رابعهم كلبهم ويقولون 5 سادسهم كلبهم رجما بالغيب ويقولون 7 وثامنهم كلبهم قل ربي أعلم بعدتهم ما يعلمهم إلا قليل فلا تمار فيهم إلا مراء ظاهرا ولا تستفت فيهم منهم أحدا ولا تقولن لشيء إني فاعل ذلك غدا إلا أن يشاء الله واذكر ربك إذا نسيت وقل عسى أن يهديني ربي لأقرب من هذا رشدا ولبثوا في كهفهم 300 سنين وازدادوا 9 قل الله أعلم بما لبثوا له غيب السماوات والأرض أبصر به وأسمع ما لهم من دونه من ولي ولا يشرك في حكمه أحدا واتل ما أوحي إليك من كتاب ربك لا مبدل لكلماته ولن تجد من دونه ملتحدا واصبر نفسك مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه ولا تعد عيناك عنهم تريد زينة الحياة الدنيا ولا تطع من أغفلنا قلبه عن ذكرنا واتبع هواه وكان أمره فرطا وقل الحق من ربكم فمن شاء فليؤمن ومن شاء فليكفر إنا أعتدنا للظالمين نارا أحاط بهم سرادقها وإن يستغيثوا يغاثوا بماء كالمهل يشوي الوجوه بئس الشراب وساءت مرتفقا إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات إنا لا نضيع أجر من أحسن عملا أولئك لهم جنات عدن تجري من تحتهم الأنهار يحلون فيها من أساور من ذهب ويلبسون ثيابا خضرا من سندس واستبرق متكئين فيها على الأرائك نعم الثواب وحسنت مرتفقا واضرب لهم مثلا الرجلين جعلنا لأحدهما جنتين من أعناب وحففناهما بنخل وجعلنا بينهما زرعا كلتا الجنتين آتت أكلها ولم تظلم منه شيئا وفجرنا خلالهما نهرا وكان له ثمر فقال لصاحبه وهو يحاوره أنا أكثر منك مالا وأعز نفرا ودخل جنته وهو ظالم لنفسه قال ما أظن أن تبيد هذه أبدا وما أظن الساعة قائمة ولئن رددت إلى ربي لأجدن خيرا منها منقلبا. قال له صاحبه وهو يحاوره أكفرت بالذي خلقك من تراب ثم من نطفة ثم سواك رجلا. لكن هو الله ربي ولا أشرك بربي أحدا. ولولا إذ دخلت جنتك قلت ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله إن ترني أنا أقل منك مالا وولدا. فعسى ربي أن يؤتيني خيرا من جنتك ويرسل عليها حسبانا من السماء فتصبح صعيدا زلقا، أو يصبح ماؤها غورا فلن تستطيع له طلبا. وأحيط بثمره فأصبح يقلب كفيه على ما أنفق فيها وهي خاوية على عروشها ويقول يا ليتني لم أشرك بربي أحدا. ولم تكن له فئة ينصرونه من دون الله وما كان منتصرا. هنالك الولاية لله الحق هو خير ثوابا وخير عقبا. واضرب لهم مثل الحياة الدنيا كماء أنزلناه من السماء فاختلط به نبات الأرض فأصبح هشيما تذروه الرياح وكان الله على كل شيء مقتدرا. المال والبنون زينة الحياة الدنيا والباقيات الصالحات خير عند ربك ثوابا وخير أملا. ويوم نسير الجبال وترى الأرض بارزة وحشرناهم فلم نغادر منهم أحدا. وعرضوا على ربك صفا لقد جئتمونا كما خلقناكم أول مرة بل زعمتم أن لن نجعل لكم موعدا. ووضع الكتاب فترى المجرمين مشفقين مما فيه ويقولون يا ويلتنا ما لهذا الكتاب لا يغادر صغيرة ولا كبيرة إلا أحصاها ووجدوا ما عملوا حاضرا ولا يظلم ربك أحدا. وإذ قلنا للملائكة اسجدوا لآدم فسجدوا إلا إبليس كان من الجن ففسق عن أمر ربه أفتتخذونه وذريته أولياء من دوني وهم لكم عدو بئس للظالمين بدلا. ما أشهدتهم خلق السماوات والأرض ولا خلق أنفسهم وما كنت متخذ المضلين عضدا. ويوم يقول نادوا شركائي الذين زعمتم فدعوهم فلم يستجيبوا لهم وجعلنا بينهم موبقا. ورأى المجرمون النار فظنوا أنهم مواقعوها ولم يجدوا عنها مصرفا. ولقد صرفنا في هذا القرآن للناس من كل مثل وكان الإنسان أكثر شيء جدلا وما منع الناس أن يؤمنوا إذ جاءهم الهدى ويستغفروا ربهم إلا أن تأتيهم سنة الأولين أو يأتيهم العذاب قبلا وما نرسل المرسلين إلا مبشرين ومنذرين ويجادل الذين كفروا بالباطل ليدحضوا به الحق واتخذوا آياتي وما أنذروا هزوا ومن أظلم ممن ذكر بآيات ربه فأعرض عنها ونسي ما قدمت يداه إنا جعلنا على قلوبهم أكنة أن يفقهوه وفي آذانهم وقرا وإن تدعهم إلى الهدى فلن يهتدوا إذا أبدا وربك الغفور ذو الرحمة لو يؤاخذهم بما كسبوا لعجل لهم العذاب بل لهم موعد لن يجدوا من دونه موئلا وتلك القرى أهلكناهم لما ظلموا وجعلنا لمهلكهم موعدا وإذ قال موسى لفتاه لا أبرح حتى أبلغ مجمع البحرين أو أمضي حقبا فلما بلغا مجمع بينهما نسيا حوتهما فاتخذ سبيله في البحر سربا فلما جاوزا قال لفتاه آتنا غداءنا لقد لقينا من سفرنا هذا نصبا قال أرأيت إذ أوينا إلى الصخرة فإني نسيت الحوت وما أنسانيه إلا الشيطان أن أذكره واتخذ سبيله في البحر عجبا قال ذلك ما كنا نبغي فارتدا على آثارهما قصصا فوجدا عبدا من عبادنا آتيناه رحمة من عندنا وعلمناه من لدنا علما قال له موسى هل أتبعك على أن تعلمني مما علمت رشدا قال إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا وكيف تصبر على ما لم تحط به خبرا قال ستجدني إن شاء الله صابرا ولا أعصي لك أمرا قال فإن اتبعتني فلا تسألني عن شيء حتى أحدث لك منه ذكرا فانطلقا حتى إذا ركبا في السفينة خرقها قال أخرقتها لتغرق أهلها لقد جئت شيئا إمرا قال ألم أقل إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا قال لا تؤاخذني بما نسيت ولا ترهقني من أمري عسرا فانطلقا حتى إذا لقيا غلاما فقتله قال أقتلت نفسا زكية بغير نفس لقد جئت شيئا نكرا قال ألم أقل لك إنك لن تستطيع معي صبرا قال إن سألتك عن شيء بعدها فلا تصاحبني قد بلغت من لدني عذرا. فانطلقا حتى إذا أتيا أهل قرية استطعما أهلها فأبوا أن يضيفوهما فوجدا فيها جدارا يريد أن ينقض فأقامه. قال لو شئت لاتخذت عليه أجرا. قال هذا فراق بيني وبينك، سأنبئك بتأويل ما لم تستطع عليه صبرا. أما السفينة فكانت لمساكين يعملون في البحر فأردت أن أعيبها، وكان وراءهم ملك يأخذ كل سفينة غصبا. وأما الغلام فكان أبواه مؤمنين فخشينا أن يرهقهما طغيانا وكفرا، فأردنا أن يبدلهما ربهما خيرا منه زكاة وأقرب رحما. وأما الجدار فكان لغلامين يتيمين في المدينة وكان تحته كنز لهما وكان أبوهما صالحا، فأراد ربك أن يبلغا أشدهما ويستخرجا كنزهما رحمة من ربك، وما فعلته عن أمري، ذلك تأويل ما لم تسطع عليه صبرا. ويسألونك عن ذي القرنين قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرا. إنا مكنا له في الأرض وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا، فأتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما. قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا. قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا. وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا. ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا. كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا. ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا. قال ما مكني فيه ربي خير فأعينوني بقوة أجعل بينكم وبينهم ردما. آتوني زبر الحديد حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين قال انفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا قال آتوني أفرغ عليه قطرا. فما استطاعوا أن يظهروه وما استطاعوا له نقبا. قال هذا رحمة من ربي فإذا جاء وعد ربي جعله دكاء وكان وعد ربي حقا حقا وتركنا بعضهم يومئذ يموج في بعض ونفخ في الصور فجمعناهم جمعا وعرضنا جهنم يومئذ للكافرين عرضا الذين كانت أعينهم في غطاء عن ذكري وكانوا لا يستطيعون سمعا أفحسب الذين كفروا أن يتخذوا عبادي من دوني أولياء إنا أعتدنا جهنم للكافرين نزلا قل هل ننبئكم بالأخسرين أعمالا الذين ضل سعيهم في الحياة الدنيا وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا أولئك الذين كفروا بآيات ربهم ولقائه فحبطت أعمالهم فلا نقيم لهم يوم القيامة وزنا ذلك جزاؤهم جهنم بما كفروا واتخذوا آياتي ورسلي هزوا إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا خالدين فيها لا يبغون عنها حولا قل لو كان البحر مدادا لكلمات ربي لنفد البحر قبل أن تنفد كلمات ربي ولو جئنا بمثله مددا قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد فمن كان يرجو لقاء ربه فليعمل عملا صالحا ولا يشرك بعبادة ربه أحدا آمنت بالله صدق الله العظيم.
Jazakallah khair, Qari Senan. Thank you so much for being here with us on another Friday. And may Allah bless you and your family.
آمين. جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك الله فيكم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Wa-alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Please remember our teachers and our reciters and our team members in your special du'as on this blessed day of Friday. Excuse me. Blessed day of Friday. While you are here, while I take a water break, please go ahead and click the like, subscribe, and the bell icon if you want to be alerted. Excuse me. Bismillah. Yes, so we know the importance of the algorithm, so please continue to click that like button and subscribe if you have not already, so more and more people online can get the news that we're having this amazing programming here every Friday, inshallah. You can continue to help us to spread the message of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam by sponsoring a program. We invite you to become a sponsor for any program here at Celebrate Mercy by going to celebratemercy.org/sponsor. All of the details and information is there. And there are 3 reasons to be a family sponsor. Reason number 1, sponsor slides are shown twice to thousands of viewers. That means every single person who is watching the live webinar or the recording, they will be making dua for you, the sponsor, and your family, inshallah. Reason number 2 is that so the slides will be shown, and the second reason is that on those slides we are going to making a collective dua for you and your family. And the most important reason is that you are helping us to share the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the masses, and that is our mission. So you can become a part of spreading that mission by becoming a sponsor. Again, you can receive information by going to celebratemercy.org/sponsor. And if you cannot sponsor a whole webinar, you can support this program right now. You can support our live webinars in real time by donating as little as $1. All you have to do is, if you can see the donate button right now here on YouTube. Our goal for this webinar right now, this session, is that we want to get to at least $500, inshallah, during this webinar. So please don't miss this golden opportunity on an amazing, blessed day to contribute to this program, inshallah. And can you imagine how many hearts we can introduce to the light of the Prophet ﷺ with your donation? Please support us today to extend our reach. Remember, as little as $1, inshallah. And again, here's how. All you have to do is click the Donate Now button in the right-hand corner, inshallah, and you'll be able to donate right now immediately through your device. Please remember to RSV for our Isra and Miraj program, which is happening on this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Ascent After Anguish. It is our annual program where we go over the details of one of the most important historical events, and we reflect on the Prophet ﷺ's night journey and ascension. Mashallah, look at this panel of speakers and guests who will be joining us. What an amazing panel, inshallah, and we can't wait to have you join us on this one-time webinar. We have some amazing news when you register. So let me just share that link again. You have to RSVP by going to celebratemercy.com/ascend. And when you register, you will receive these worksheets. And these are interactive worksheets, which we will be doing during the live program, inshallah. And Fatima, that is me, I will be there to guide the audience through the live worksheet in the YouTube chat. And you don't want to miss this. This is an amazing experience that we have curated with lots of thoughts and made it very intentional based on research and experience and data. And inshallah, for me personally, when I attend, I've attended some amazing programs, and there's this feeling of, oh my gosh, I can't wait to reflect on this later on. And sometimes these programs come with amazing handouts and downloadable, PDFs. But then everything kind of gets lost post-program. So we are not going to let that happen. Inshallah, this experience is going to be one of a kind. We invite you to please join live. Of course, you can always watch the recording, but do try your best to join us live so you can, inshallah, benefit from this live interaction of the program as well. Again, that is celebratemercy.com/ascend. Inshallah, we will see you on Sunday. And a reminder to please share the khair, keep guiding people to goodness. Please let everyone know that Ustadha Hosai is in the house. She is here backstage and she will be joining us shortly, inshallah. Please share with your friends and family that we are live. And it is my privilege to formally introduce Ustadha Hosai Mojaddidi, who has been serving the Muslim community for over 25 years as a teacher, public speaker, author, spiritual counselor, and mental health advocate. She began her Islamic studies over 20 years ago at the renowned Zaytuna College in California, where for several years she served as the lead female organizer and studied Aqidah, Sirah, Hanafi fiqh, Tazkiyah, An-Nafs, Tajweed, Hadith, Arabic, and other sacred subjects. She offers talks throughout the year locally and internationally on a range of topics, including spirituality, self-development, Sirah, women's issues, family and marriage, youth issues, social media literacy and safety, and mental health advocacy. She teaches weekly and monthly spiritual development classes for adults and youth for multiple local and international organizations, and through social media, of course. She also currently teaches Islamic studies, Sirah, Quran, and logic. and speech in her local community, and they are so blessed to have her. I'm so jealous. She uses her social media for platforms to promote emotional and spiritual well-being, and offers workshops on social emotional learning from Islamic perspective for students and educators throughout the year. She's a wife and mother of 2 and resides in California with her family, and I'm very jealous of everyone who is in her community right now. MashaAllah, may Allah bless all of you. Please welcome Ustadha to the stage. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, Fatima?
I am great, alhamdulillah. It is so good to see you.
You as well, subhanallah. You know, I saw the picture that you had sent, I think yesterday or this morning, and I was just telling my family the other day, I was like, I can't believe it's been a year since we were in Houston. That's crazy.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah. So, I am so happy to be hosting you today, and this is such an important topic. So I'm going to get off stage, and the stage is yours, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. Alhamdulillah. This is, again, mashallah, one of my favorite topics to talk about, and there's so much to cover, everybody, so I'm really excited. Let's begin, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala ashraf al-anbiya'i wal mursaleen Sayyidina wa maulana wa habibina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. So alhamdulillah, I'm going to actually screen share because there are a lot of slides, and I'm going to try to work my way through them as best as I can, but we do have Q&A at the end, so hopefully whatever we don't cover, we will cover during that. So just give me one moment while I can go ahead and share this. Hopefully it goes through. So can someone maybe in the comments just let me know that it's displaying, that you can see my screen so that I don't talk to myself? Can you guys see it? There we go. Okay, awesome, exciting, alhamdulillah. So as you all know, alhamdulillah, by now, today's topic is on the 4 temperaments. And this is, again, such an important area of study, subhanAllah, that every one of us should know, especially those of us who have children, who are just, actually everybody, really. I don't want to put those disclaimers because everybody can benefit from this. And alhamdulillah, I'm really excited again to share this with you. So let's go ahead and jump into the presentation, inshallah. Bismillah. So first, we have to do a little bit of, blast from the past, or a little walk through the history of this, because, context matters. How do we understand, temperament, personality? How do we understand this? Where did it come from? All of that. So just to go back a little bit in time here, this is, again, you can take screenshots, and I would advise you to do that because some of this will be a little bit text heavy, not all of them, but some of the slides I have, just so you can go back and read this. But basically, there was this concept called the 4 roots that was, that was attributed to, the Greeks, where basically they're looking at everything in the world, and they came up with this idea, specifically Empedocles, that everything comes from these things that he referred to as roots, right, which are air, water, fire, and earth. And then over time, Plato was the first, but then over time that term changed into elements, right? So this idea that everything can be sourced to the 4 elements, that gave birth to the theory of the 4 elements, which became very widespread. And you find it actually in many different cultures and civilizations, as far back as history goes, where people took this idea and really did use it as a system of trying to understand the world around them. And then, as we mentioned in the last point here, each culture actually philosophized about these attributes and how they related to just things that they were observing in the world cosmologically, but also materially. And there was, some overlap. So you will find this idea of 4 elements in mythology and different, belief systems, but it was something that was very widespread. And so then we get to, well, how does that relate to the 4 temperaments? Well, eventually, as we're going to learn now, this idea that everything can be sourced to these 4 different elements then gave birth to, again, more ideas as we were understanding the human being, first and foremost, from a physiological standpoint. And that's why Hippocrates, who's the father of modern medicine, is the very key figure in this theory of the 4 temperaments. And then Galen and Ibn Sina. So I'm going to go through, again, their biographies really quickly, and feel free, again, to screenshot or just go back and watch the video if you want to get this information more. But here, Hippocrates is the first person who's really attributed to bringing this to what we now understand, or what he coined as humorism, and it does relate to a lot of things that even modern medicine confirms about just the nature, the constitution of the human being, and what, the different fluids and things that we're comprised of. So he was looking at this purely from a physiological, medicinal sort of perspective, like what is going on in the human body? How can these things, how do they interact with each other? How do they present as symptoms, as different features of the human being, even from a physiognomy perspective, like looking at someone's facial structures? How does temperament relate, or humorism, as he called it, relate? And he looked at these 4 specific fluids that he identified as humors. And when I first, heard this, I was like, what humor? We think of it as something related to comedy, but this is actually a different term that was coined back then relating to specific fluids. So he looked at black bile, yellow bile, phlegm, and blood, and basically said that if there was an excess or deficiency in any of these, that they would present certain symptoms, disease or otherwise, in the body. And so it was very, medically framed in the beginning, this concept of humorism. And then Galen comes along, and he is Greek, and what he does is he actually further develops it really by looking at temperature, which is really important because that's where we get the term temperament from, right? And he's looking at, again, the same concepts in terms of the fluids, but really associating them with these from a material perspective, these temperatures, right? Hot, cold, wet, and dry. And then he actually names the 4 humors, originally being related to the fluids, into the system of temperament. So he gives them the Greek names that you may or may not have heard of over, reading different things. And we'll get to how this is quite popular if you're paying attention, temperament theory, but choleric, sanguine, phlegmatic, and melancholic. So he names these 4 fluids, but now again, framing them from a place of temperature. And then we get to the figure that's very important to us, which is Ibn Sina, because Ibn Sina, studying these earlier teachings, develops the science even further, these theories, and explains that not only does it affect us physiologically and physically, from that standpoint, but also our personalities, right? Emotional aspects that we have, our capacities mentally, moral attitudes. So he's really now developing this into something much more broader than just about the human body. And he gives it also the Arabic terms. So the terms that we study when you study mizaj, which is the formal science of temperament theory in Islam, would be the Damawi, Balghami, Safrawi, and Saudawi. And these are the 4 Arabic terms for the same 4 temperaments that we just covered. And this is all found in a copy of his book, of course, the Qanun fi Tib, which is still even recognized as one of the greatest contributions to modern medicine. So Ibn Sina is a huge central figure. And actually, if anybody is interested in further exploring, I just pulled this from Amazon's description page, but you can see here that they still are referring to the science of the humors and how it actually relates to modern medicine, right? So this quote here, the fact that this idea of these fluids is also very closely associated to what now we refer to as proteins, lipids, organic acids. So all of this is really great context for those who are interested in still exploring the medical sort of angle to this. But if we continue further from there, we find other scholars as well in our tradition, alhamdulillah, developing this, using it as a tool, teaching it, and really making it a central part of trying to understand human behavior. So temperament is so central to our faith, and as you'll find in coming slides, in other traditions as well. But another scholar that we really want to be mindful of, and again, I know these quotes are long, so just read them maybe later, but for the quote for that's really important in this context is the bottom quote, Imam al-Ghazali. Imam al-Ghazali speaks a lot about temperament and the fact that it is so essential for everyone. And he actually stressed that it's so important that anyone who's either a caregiver, a parent, teacher, who's around children, if they don't study mizaj, they should not be around children, because without this knowledge, we can actually cause a lot of harm. And that's so important because you see a lot of children, they're different. They have their own unique sort of personalities. And if an adult is not in tune with the different ways that children present themselves, they may actually cause, like I said, a lot of harm. So studying this would give you a lot of prerequisite knowledge to understand child development, stages of child development, temperament, personality, all of those things that would help to really promote more empathy and understanding from any perspective, like, from an adult toward a child, whether that's, again, in the capacity of a parent, a grandparent, an educator, whatever it is. You would have more sympathy, more empathy for the child, having better understanding of this science. So he really stressed that, mashallah. Now, again, because it was something that was so popular and widespread, you will find it when you look at medieval depictions of temperament, or just anything, throughout history, whether it's from science, literature, religious, psychological, educational, artistic. You will find depictions of the temperaments that was very commonly used as a tool, again, of understanding. Christians had their use of it. The Jews, every group, every religious group, many different cultural groups used it, and they still use it even today. So it was definitely more common and historically used. And then when you look at, even tying back the medical aspect of it, what was interesting is during, the Elizabethan era, they were so reliant on this system that they actually curated menus around individual temperaments and what people could eat and couldn't eat. And some may or may not know that figures like Shakespeare actually incorporated temperament in his plays, and there are many characters based on specific temperament. So what's a phlegmatic? And we're going to get to the definitions of these. I'm just giving you the history of it because it's important to understand where this came from. But there are many other, even in modern, depictions of film, television, where temperament theory is still used in character development, and we'll get to that in a moment. But other people that you want to know of also are people like Rudolf Steiner, who was known as, being someone who contributed greatly to just theories on education and spirituality. But particularly, he's the founder of the Waldorf education system, and also the movement called anthroposophy. I think that's how you say it. But he also has a lot to say about temperaments and the importance of studying this for specifically understanding children, and really paying attention to just how, beautiful it is once you understand the system, how it can give you a lot of more understanding just the behavior of children. So someone to also study and learn. And then here's just some examples of how you will see throughout, littered everywhere within our culture are some references to the temperaments. Here's a board game. I think it's a game. And then just, terms that a lot of times were used to identify specific temperaments there, because each temperament will have certain qualities, which I'm going to get to in a moment. So this is just sort of the general history. And now I just want to bring your attention to the themes of this number 4, because it is significant. If you look at this number 4 throughout history and the world, you will see some interesting patterns, right? So we already mentioned Empedocles, but we also have before Empedocles, Ezekiel. And then these are just all, again, things for you to know. It's just important to kind of connect the dots. I like to, whenever I see patterns, connect those dots, because I do think there's meaning to them. And you'll see overlap. You'll see a lot of overlap, especially when you're studying either historical, systems that are trying to attempt to understand human behavior, or even modern systems, modern psychology. A lot of personality tests will use very similar concepts that we find rooted in the 4 temperaments. They just name them different things. So that's just all iterations of this ancient science. But these are just some of those. And we mentioned again Ibn Sina, but these are other people as well who contributed even more modern figures to personality tests. And you can see, like, if you've taken the 16 personality tests or Myers-Briggs, there's just so many of them, but they rely heavily on this ancient science. They've just come up with different terms. Each person who studies this will try to kind of come up with their own system, but it's all really essentially the same. And then this is more, looking at, again, more patterns, the stages of human being, the infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood. You see the yogic paths, you see the 4 khulafa, which is really important because, I believe Sheikh Hamza was the first person who pointed out that, subhanAllah, if you look at the 4 khulafa, they actually all embody one of the 4 temperaments. And once you learn the 4 temperaments, you'll see it. And the fact that each of them were brought into the perfect balance by the Prophet ﷺ. So that's just extraordinary, because it's just another further proof of how important this science is. The 4 chambers of the heart, cardinal direction. So again, we can see the corners of the Kaaba. SubhanAllah, 4 is an essential, it's a really important number for us when you're looking at all of these patterns in the world. Now, what is it? Because I'm sure some of you are like, okay, get to it. Let's learn more about what this is. So what are the 4 temperaments? Now, there are terms that we want to be familiar with. I mean, I gave you some already, but let's look at, again, the connection between the 4 temperaments and the 4 elements. When you see the elements, right, there's a reference that you want to make, which are looking at those essential, what we call roots in the beginning, and then they were coined as elements: earth, water, fire, and air. There's an overlap, as we said, and so there's just this understanding that when you're looking at the sanguine, you're looking at air temperament. It's an airy quality, and what does that mean? We'll get to in a moment. The fiery represents the choleric, a lot of energy, a lot of just force, and so fire is erratic. So a lot of that symbolism, even when you're thinking of these elements, just remember them as we go along with the descriptions. The phlegmatic is water, and water can be calming. It can also be quite intense, right? When you think of a forceful, like a wave, tsunami, or a hurricane, but certainly calming as well. And then earth, pragmatic, rooted, melancholic, right? So the elements have a connection to the specific 4 temperaments, and we also provide the fluids that they're associated with here too in this simple chart here. Now, what again does this all mean? Well, once you understand that the temperament theory is based on looking at human behavior and the ways that we express ourselves, right? That we have different emotions, different intensities. And so they've just basically classified them into these 4 different groups that really help to understand the intensity and the way that we express and react to the world. So there's different, and the final slide here is going to really give you like the easiest way to know what your temperament is. But in a nutshell, it has to do with emotional expression and reactivity to the world. And so you see, the strong emotions, they are with the melancholic and choleric, and they can be very intense. So we'll get to each specific one, but this is again just a general way of understanding that there's expressiveness. Some people who are temperamentally very expressive can be strong, in their expression. Even if they're silent, they can be completely quiet, right? They come into a room, but they have such intensity. So there is something there that to explore, and that is often explained when you understand their temperament. And then there's others that are gentle, and then they're just more easygoing, fluid. So there's a lot of, again, that symbolism when you bring it back to the elements that ties in. But this is just a simple way to kind of organize the emotional expression of each temperament. And then an easy way to also understand temperaments, the 4 of them, is to first divide them into 2 groups. So we have the extroverted temperaments and then the introverted temperaments. Now, what is that? What is an extrovert and an introvert? Some people often mistake this for, being either really, outgoing and just outspoken and very, again, expressive, or shy. And it's not quite that black and white. It actually has more to do with the way that we source our energy, right? So an extroverted person is really impacted by external stimuli. So needing more people, like just environment, can really affect their energy output. Whereas an introverted temperament is someone that actually recharges more in isolation or on their own terms, right? Without all of that distraction and stimuli, they can actually be very productive. So it really comes down to energy sourcing. But essentially, the 2 groups here are divided then into subgroups. So you have the extroverted temperaments, introverted. Within the extroverted temperaments are the choleric, right, temperament, which and these images aren't quite fair because they kind of give you like a, in some cases, like the choleric, you see that mean face, and you might think like all cholerics are necessarily mean because of the face. So please ignore the smiley faces, but rather look at the words, because those words, and I have other slides too that also give you more information. But the choleric is just really a leader, a natural leader, take charge kind of person, someone who is ready and always willing to just get things done. So highly productive, highly passionate about what they're doing, but they are not, afraid to speak up. So they have this kind of, energy that's very, very obvious when they enter a space. You will know the choleric. They usually do tend to be, again, those take charge kind of people. And then you have within that same, group is the sanguine. So sanguines are also very, they're sociable. So they tend to be very obvious when in a social setting, because they're expressive, they're very talkative, they're chatty, but they are not as, they're not necessarily pushy in that sense of wanting to kind of force themselves in any way, like the choleric. The choleric is very intense. They do want to be heard. They do want attention. The sanguine is more interested in getting to know people, so they kind of can be a little just flighty, but definitely social. And so they have a lot of great qualities, charisma. All of them, by the way, all of the temperaments have positive and negatives, but these are just kind of an overview. So they can both be understood as being the more extroverted, outspoken, really just outgoing, more expressive, and more sociable in that sense temperaments. And then you have the introverted, which are quiet, and they're more brooding. They're just, they're kind of, you have to work a little harder to get to know them. They're not as obvious and transparent. So the phlegmatic and the melancholic, and there is, some, in terms of intensity, you'll see that as we get to the external or the extremes, for which are the choleric and the melancholic, they have more intensity. And then within the four, if you actually were to like write them out on a line, you would see the sanguine and the phlegmatic. They're a little bit more milder in terms of their intensity, and more people oriented, whereas the melancholic and choleric are more goal oriented. So they tend not to have very strong social skills in that way, that they can kind of put off people because they're so intense, whereas the phlegmatic and sanguine are really in tune with people, and they're very focused on relationships. So one-on-one conversations, really meaningful. A phlegmatic will just lock eyes with you. They'll be so present with you because they really are very interested in you as a person. Whereas a melancholic does not like the larger crowds and may like a more smaller sort of group setting, but they tend to be more analytical and observant, and maybe not as in tune on that emotional level, but they are paying attention for sure. They're just not as connected because they're there for a reason. Maybe they're just trying to be polite. They'd rather be home. Oftentimes melancholics are more comfortable in their own company. But anyway, we'll get to the more specifics because I have more slides coming up. So let's actually look at the assertive choleric. Now this is, again, just for a visual, but a practical kind of quick short list to understand this temperament better. So what is the choleric? Assertive, I think, would be the best word to remember when you think of a choleric temperament. It's someone who knows what they like, knows what they don't like, does not have a problem speaking up and voicing their opinion. They're very opinionated. They do like to delegate also and to kind of take charge, take control. But here, the most ambitious of all the temperaments, cholerics seek positions of power. So power is really important to them. They're competitive. They're goal-oriented, as we mentioned. Motivational, too, so they can definitely inspire. If you ever feel sluggish or just, have maybe goals, but you don't have a spark, you don't have the fire to get it done, you need a choleric around you. The choleric will light your fire. They will come. They will tell you what to do. They'll help you along the way because they love getting things done, and they're not just for themselves. They just like productivity. They like success. They're very ambitious in that way. So they're wonderful for getting things done. And I would highly recommend anybody who's kind of on the fence, or maybe, just not getting ahead in life, to find themselves a choleric. You will get there, inshallah. And then, the terms here, if you look at the bottom here, the keywords, remember these 3 terms. This is the simplest way to organize the temperaments, is to remember, do they belong in the extroverted or introverted group? Are they reactive, and are they flexible or inflexible? So these are the 3 that belong to the choleric. They're extroverted, they're highly reactive people. So that means that in any given situation, you will know their thoughts and opinions. They're not ones to shy away from expressing themselves, but they're also inflexible. And that's super important to know as well, as a quality of the choleric temperament. What does that mean? It means that if there is a falling out or some difficulty, tension with a choleric, they're not going to be quick to budge. They tend to hold grudges. They have a hard time with forgiveness in situations of conflict. And they may even go to the extreme of cutting people off, because they don't have time for drama. And this is the kind of justification they have for that kind of stuff. But, from a spiritual perspective, obviously, these are things that we would want to work on. So for our choleric brothers and sisters, even though these are strong impulses, one of the points of studying the temperament theory is that we have to go back to the prophetic model, right? That's the whole point, is that we look at the strengths and the deficiencies, but from the lens of how does it complement, does it conflict with, the temperament of the Prophet ﷺ, and anything that conflicts with his temperament obviously needs to be worked on. So it's good to identify, right? That's how when we're diagnosing spiritual disease or physical disease, we always need to identify the problem. So for the choleric, these are the challenges, is that they tend to have a hard time with flexibility, and they can be very rigid and have a hard time. But other than that, they have amazing strengths. And again, important to have a holistic picture of each temperament. The next is the sunny sanguine. So sunny, again, would be a good quick way to just think of the sanguine. Yellow is often represented with the sanguine, and red, which again, think of the bull, think of, a bullish kind of a person, is the choleric color. But yellow, it's bubbly, it's kind of light, it's fun. And so this is a cheerful, very social temperament. They tend to have a lot of friends and be very popular, kind of the life of the party. They love people. They love they love all types of people. They tend to have groups, people of all different stripes in their social circles, because they really genuinely love humanity and love people. And they also have certain qualities that we want to be mindful of. The extroversion is there, just like choleric. They are reactive as well. So in any given situation, the sanguine will also speak their mind up, but they tend to be a little bit more diplomatic, more polite. They're careful not to hurt people, but they don't have a problem speaking up. And the distinguishing quality between them and the choleric is their flexibility. The sanguine is interested in people, so they want resolution quickly. They will work towards towards resolutions or any, if there's a conflict, and they're forgiving. They tend to just get over things. So if you have a sanguine in your life, and you got into some argument with them, they could get over it pretty fast. Like maybe within 30 minutes, they snap back into themselves, and you might be puzzled, like, what? We just had this big shouting match, and now all of a sudden they're coming around and asking you if you want to go grab a bite to eat. So it can be very confusing if you don't understand temperament, that a person can switch on and off so quickly. But they tend to want to resolve problems because they love people and they don't want conflict. So that would be the different, or the thing that distinguishes the sanguine from the choleric. Just keep that in mind, because they share extroversion, they share reactivity, but they differ on flexibility. Okay, now we get into the introverted temperament. So beginning with the calming phlegmatic. So again, when you think of a single adjective or word to describe these temperaments, remember the ones that we had: assertive for the choleric, sunny for the sanguine, calming for the phlegmatic. They are really chill people. And I kind of like to call them like the Zen of the temperaments. They're just people that are constantly, they're calming. Their presence is calming. They speak calmly. When you see them, they're kind of natural healers, and they tend to have, just skills, maybe whether it's listening skills or other qualities that make them really good healers, as friends and people in your life. You can speak to them about your problems. They'll be there for you. They're reliable, and they also genuinely care about people. So they're wonderful as friends, and anybody who is in need of someone to kind of, just be there as a nurturing confidant, someone they can rely on. Definitely, you need a phlegmatic in your life. And their key words or terms that you want to remember are introversion. So they're introverted, and then they're non-reactive, which means that they're not going to necessarily express every feeling or emotion. Even in a time of intensity, they actually have to process. So their processing time is a little bit slower, and that's not cognitively, has nothing to do with cognitive problems. It's just that they are really understanding everything and trying to feel everything and work things out for themselves. So in any given situation, a phlegmatic will take their time before they let you know how they feel about something, or their opinion on something, or their thoughts, or if there was a conflict, before they actually express to you what problems they had. They will take their time, but they're flexible. They will forgive. They don't want conflict. It just might take them a little bit of time to get there, especially if they feel like they're wounded. If you inflicted any harm on them, they will eventually get to the point of forgiveness, but it might take a little bit more time than a reactive sanguine, for example. So this is the calming phlegmatic. And then we have the final temperament here, which is the focused melancholic. Again, the term that you want to remember for a melancholic: hyper-focused. Very, very sharp, vigilant sort of temperament that is, just methodical, really, analytical, critical, all of those things. And in their work, they're perfectionists. They tend to really pay a lot of attention to the details that many of us don't pay attention to because of that hyper focus. They're contemplative, so they have a lot of great qualities as well. And they do like to solve problems, because like the choleric, they share that quality with the choleric, is that they're goal-oriented people. So they want to work, they want to get things done. Whereas the choleric likes to, take charge, lead groups. The melancholic would rather you leave them alone and they'll get the job done. They don't want to be around people. They're better off on their own. And so the words to understand the melancholic is that they're also introverted like the phlegmatic. They're non-reactive, so they're just as difficult to get a reaction from as the phlegmatic, but actually more difficult, because the melancholic does not really like to share and open up about their feelings at all. It will take a long time, if you're with a melancholic, to really know what they're thinking. So this can pose a lot of challenges, especially if you have certain pairings. If you have, a sanguine and a melancholic, they might run into a lot of communication issues, because the sanguine is very communicative, really wants to get, to know you and kind of build that rapport with you. And the melancholic has, they're like in a fortress, within themselves. They really, it's like a Russian, doll. Like you have to keep, there's so many layers to them, and they don't really trust easily. So you just have to know these things about the temperaments in order to really, again, practice that empathy and try to, to just, be more understanding. But their key defining or distinctive quality from the phlegmatic is that they're inflexible like the choleric. So they're the type that have a very difficult time with forgiveness, with getting over things. They tend to hold grudges, and they actually are probably more likely to cut someone off than even try to reconcile. It's easier for them in their worldview to just be done with a relationship than have to try to work towards explaining and trying to get to some resolution. They'd rather not. They would rather just part ways, and they will be fine. But again, from a spiritual perspective, when you look at these types of qualities, especially around forgiveness and the treatment of other people, all of this matters, because again, the point of the study of this science is not to get, to dig your heels and to kind of get set in your ways and just say, that's it, this is who I am, take me as I am, but rather to look at your strengths and say, how can I use this for that which pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And then the weaknesses and deficiencies, and say, how can I do better and learn from these other temperaments in order to bring myself into balance, which is where we look to the Prophet ﷺ, because he was, of course, in perfect balance. So I don't think I mentioned it. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of rushing because there's so much to cover and I don't have that much time. But I wanted to mention this because it's really important that all of us have all four. Okay, so if you're kind of trying to figure out who you are, keep that in mind. We possess all four of these at varying degrees. And it depends on who you're with. You may actually change your temperament based on your group. You could be sanguine with some people who really bring out that shiny personality, and totally melancholic with others, like at work. So we have the capacity to kind of be fluid in our temperaments based on, environment and group. However, we do dominate in one, and there's a primary and a secondary. So you're going to feel like more of an inclination or like resonance with one or two, but you have all four. We all have all four. And the objective, again, of this is that you bring yourself into equilibrium and balance, because there's good and flaw, there's positive and bad or negative in each of them. And we want to work on the flaws, right? We want to get rid of those. So there's so much to say, but just quickly, because before we break out, and I know I probably went over, forgive me, but this, it's important to kind of see the impact that temperament theory has had on our culture and the world, because it has historically. But if you look through, as I mentioned earlier, through literature, film, television, you're going to find a lot of characters that we love that are actually based on temperament theory. And once you start to, like kind of recall these characters and the people that you may have felt really like a connection with, you may find that you share a temperament, or maybe they are a temperament that you're attracted to, because opposites do attract. So just, as I'll go through these, but this is also Shakespeare. As I mentioned before, he has other characters. Many of his characters are actually built on the temperaments. Winnie the Pooh is a great one that everybody refers to as well, because you'll go through the different characters and you'll see that each temperament has either one or two characters that really like starts to gel it all together. You're like, now I understand. Downton Abbey, if you ever watch that series, they had two. I mean, they had other characters as well, but these are just examples for you to kind of learn from. And then this is something important that I think just ties it all together. That temperament theory, even in nature, we talked about the four elements, so we're kind of just doing a full circle here. But like the life cycle of a plant, if you really look at it and how, plants live and thrive and how we maintain plant life, it actually is this beautiful relationship, the synchronicity between all of these four elements that bring them together. And that's kind of how we want to look at the temperaments within us, right? That we want balance, that just like plants need soil and air and water and fire, the heat, right, from the sunlight, that it needs that to thrive and to grow really well. For us, we need all four. So even though it's comfortable and by default, we may settle into one or two. When we get stubborn and fixed mindsets, and we get really rigid about who we are, we're actually, preventing proper growth, because proper growth means balance, right? And so that's why it's so important to first understand, the temperament theory, then look at oneself and start to see what is deficient, what's missing, and what's excessive and what's deficient, because we might have an excess that we need to work on as well. So the 3 simple questions, if you're curious again to know what your temperament is, here it is, simple questions for assessment. Number 1, you have to want to ask yourself, or you want to ask yourself, am I an extrovert or an introvert? Right? That will help you determine you're one of two after that point, right? You're either on the side of the choleric and sanguine, or on the side of phlegmatic and melancholic. Then you want to ask yourself, do you react quickly in situations? Are you someone who really, speaks up and is just kind of, and doesn't also shy away from expressing oneself, right? Which is similar to extroversion, but still within those two, you can find varying degrees. So reactive or non-reactive, what are you? And then, are you flexible or inflexible? Are you the type of person that wants to get over conflicts quickly, or do you have a hard time? Do you hold grudges? And if you hold grudges, you're going to be likely a melancholic or a choleric. But if you are a person who really looks for resolutions quickly, does not like conflict at all, then you're likely a sanguine or a phlegmatic. So hopefully by now you know what your primary is. And at this point, then what you would do is, again, try to figure out where your deficiencies and strengths are. So alhamdulillah, this was a very quick summary of a very deep science. So I hope it was beneficial to you, but I'm happy to take any questions or go back to any slides if anybody has any questions, and we can proceed from there, inshallah.
Oh my gosh.
Did I stop on time? It's like a miracle if that happened, because I usually always go over, but I was rushing so much. Fatima, did I do okay on time?
Okay, okay, here we go. 36 minutes.
Is that
Pretty
exactly
good.
right?
That is really good, because I
Okay.
was like, okay, I'm going to stop her at 35. So technically you did end at 35, mashallah. That's amazing. Wow. I was just like, mashallah. These are my weekly workshops where I'm just taking notes, and I'm just so happy for tech that I can screenshot things as well.
Yes.
But thank you. Yeah, so for everyone who wants to ask questions, and I see some of you have already started, mashallah, please, you can post your questions in the comments, or you can email them to us right now at questions@celebratemercy.com. And subhanAllah, that was, it was so funny because as you were speaking, people were like asking questions, and they're like, oh, alhamdulillah, you already answered my question. Mashallah. So that was amazing. What an important topic. So, so necessary for so many reasons. I would like to start with a question that I'm sure is on everyone's mind. Where do you fit in, Ustadha Hosai?
That's so sweet.
How did you assess yourself, if you feel comfortable sharing?
No, of course. Mashallah, I have no problem sharing it all. Thank you for asking. Alhamdulillah, I have figured out that I'm definitely a sanguine temperament and a phlegmatic. So I'm right in the middle of those two. I tend to I'm a people person. I've always loved people, and I feel like that's just where I'm comfortable. And, my work, I think a lot of it is, around children. So, and if you look at, the stages of human development, we do kind of also look at temperament theory applied to like phases of life, right? So children tend to be sanguine, and because they're just cheerful, they're happy, they're kind of, happy-go-lucky, everything's fine, they don't have stress, right? So they tend to be in that sanguine stage. And then when you get to the adolescent stage, it's a little bit more intense, right? There's a huge shift that happens in their temperament, and that's why parents are sometimes thrown off, because they are like, what happened to my happy, bubbly, carefree child? Now they're slamming doors, and I'm scared to talk to them, So they enter a choleric stage because it's intense. There's physiological changes, a lot of emotional changes, relationships are shifting. They don't understand themselves, and they just kind of go insular a little bit, but it's an intensity that's very perceptible. And then as we level out and the hormones kind of, start to taper down, you see a more melancholic, and there's different opinions about whether it's melancholic or phlegmatic, but a lot of people say it's more melancholic, because now you're in the stage of, I need to get work done, right? I have to become my own person. I have to individualize from my parents and family. So finding your path, in school and work, and then a relationship. So there's just this intensity and hyper focus on oneself that comes in the sort of young adult life, and then that trajectory. And then we get into the later sort of phase as we've matured and grown our families and start to retire. We get into the phlegmatic stage, which is like, less people around, because people also are not around, right? We start to lose loved ones, but we also just become really, I think, more in a calm state. And hopefully spiritually, pairs well too with the stages of the soul, right? Because hopefully our goal is, by the end of our lives, that we are all working towards that mutma'inna, right? The nafs al-mutma'inna, that we want to be in a tranquil state. So that kind of works with the phlegmatic. But to answer your question, I'm sorry, the sanguine, I would say, because I've always worked with children, and I've always, as a teacher, so I feel like we just complement one another, because that's the kind of energy that I like, just, carefree kind of in free spiritedness of children. But then the phlegmatic is also because I work with women and I do a lot of care in terms of spiritual counseling. So I feel like the nurturing qualities that require that kind of work bring out my phlegmatic. So I'm between those two. But there are times I can definitely be choleric. My children will say when they don't do their chores and are up too late.
Yeah.
And other times where you go into a melancholic state. There were actually periods of my life where my friends said I was 100% melancholic, and I agree. During those difficult years, I was. So we can go and vacillate between these different.
Yeah.
But what about you? Have you worked yourself out?
I was taking notes. I'm like, and then I'm like, oh, like I sound like it's me, the leader, and then you said you hold grudges. And I'm like, oh, lately I've been holding grudges. I'm like, no. But then, I think, but I'm quite hormonal. I'm still postpartum right now, so I don't want to be too hard on myself. But I
Yeah.
think I'm more sanguine because I also work mostly with I'm a big community person,
Okay.
and working with children and moms and everything. So I also think I would fall into that more. But like you said, different days, different temperaments.
Well, I think I'm glad you brought the point of hormones up, because for women anyway, we do have to keep in mind, and that's why I love this whole framework, is because it really humanizes our behaviors. Sometimes we are very hard on ourselves, especially whether it's PMS or postpartum or whatever, and we tend to see parts of ourselves that we're like, who is that? I don't even recognize that person. And then it can really actually play on our own self-perception and self-image. And you see women beating themselves up for things that are not in their control, which is why understanding this framework from all of the history of it as well makes a lot of sense, right? Because it started off trying to understand human beings from a physiological perspective, factoring in fluids, and hormones are definitely part of that. And then it went into and expanded into human behavior. So there's a correlation that we are impacted by hormones, and we will, when we have deficiencies and excesses, we will see certain things that maybe impact our temperaments. And so that just humanizes everybody. And I feel like it's really validating to learn this early on for young girls and young boys as well, because testosterone certainly can do the same for boys. When you see like your young boy, I have two boys, but when you see your young preteen, like that 10-year-old boy who's not been impacted by that huge wave of testosterone that hits them as soon as they become baligh, when they come into adolescence, shift completely and become so intense and sometimes even aggressive. It can be very alarming, like what happened. And if you don't understand, their stages of development, but also temperament, it could really make you not direct them in the best way possible as a parent. So that's why, like, people like Imam al-Ghazali required this as a knowledge that we should all have before we even enter that world of parenting, and certainly before we teach children.
Yeah, subhanAllah. So I think that I would love to. I saw a question here that will fit really well in here, because you're talking about, even before we have kids, right? So which temperaments make good spouses? And another question that kind of ties into this, it's the same sister Shazia. She's saying which temperaments match well together in a marriage?
Yeah, excellent question. Shout out to Shazia. Love her. But yes, I think it's a wonderful question and so important. And this is also one of the benefits of studying temperament, is before you're looking at, if you're single or you have children that you're looking to marry, hopefully in your lifetime soon, you would want to study this, because you should know what pairs well. The old, saying that opposites attract is certainly true. You will see a tendency for example, the sanguine and melancholic. I know several couples where sanguine and melancholic will just gravitate towards each other. Even in my own marriage, that was absolutely true. I actually have a whole talk on temperament theory on YouTube back when I was newly married, kind of coming into this under science, talking about my relationship. So I kind of talked about how the sanguine melancholic fit, but it's because and it's true. I think someone may have mentioned, or I glanced over at the comments and I saw someone saying that when they were 12, they kind of knew there it is. That you kind of know when you're very young, your temperament. And when I was very young, I always had an appreciation, an admiration for the melancholic, even though I was always sanguine, like I was pretty social, but I always noticed the quiet people, whether they were just, in a room or in a classroom setting. I always observed them because I found them to be really interesting, right? That they weren't, they were kind of a mystery to me. So I think for the sanguine, because we are so interested in people, it's like trying to figure out a melancholic is appealing because they're like a puzzle, they're enigmatic, they're not so obvious. Whereas others, that are more like us, we can kind of figure out right away. So I always felt like that was part of the attraction I had towards melancholics. And I think for melancholics, which is also researched, there's an ease in being with a sanguine because it takes the burden off of them to have to socialize in settings, for example, or just, if you're in a family setting or in a group setting or whatever, and you have a sanguine partner, the melancholic is off duty. They can just passively enjoy their time because a lot of that work, is being done by their sanguine partner. Now, as far as the phlegmatics and cholerics are also a common pairing, and it's because phlegmatics like to fix, and heal. And sometimes, people do make these sort of psychological attributions as well, as that the choleric has like unresolved, trauma issues, and that's why they can be so intense. And so the phlegmatic may be drawn to the choleric for that reason, that there's a healing. And then obviously the choleric needs a nurturer because they're taking on the weight of the world, or that's how they kind of live, right? They take on a lot more than maybe they can handle because they're so overly ambitious or really intense. So to have a nurturer take care of you is really appealing. And so each temperament may find in the partner that they attract either a deficiency that they have or a longing, a need that is fulfilled in that partner.
Oh, subhanAllah. Sorry, I'm just like taking this for my personal life right here. I'm just like thinking all about me right now.
That's actually why I think people love this topic. It's so natural that as soon as you hear anything about temperaments and personalities, your mind goes to like, oh my God, me, my partner, my sister, my brother, so that's actually exactly what you should be doing.
Yeah, subhanAllah. I'm definitely, I think, in my choleric week because I am like, people, I need you to take care of me. Like, it's been too much.
There you go.
SubhanAllah. SubhanAllah. Amazing. Amazing. I'm just, I think this is going to be, everyone who's watching this is going to be our topic for like the next dinner party for sure.
Oh, that's exciting. That makes me very happy because that's the benefit of learning this. I feel like it's life-changing. It really is. It's life-changing when you start to figure out the puzzle of yourself and then the people that are closest to you. Because if you really think about how hard it is to sustain relationships, a lot of it is just trying to figure out other people's behavior. Like you can't process, like, why did they do that? Why did they say that? But once you understand people from their temperament, it really just, again, increases empathy and can help facilitate communication. I'm seeing a lot of questions pop up here.
I'm sorry. Would you like to?
No, go ahead. You do the question.
Well.
I'm just, mashallah, I'm happy to see the chat active. That's exciting.
Yes, mashallah, yeah, mashallah. So, yes, Sister Nurain is asking, when you say reactive or non-reactive, does this mean how we change when we are alone, or like when we are with a group?
That's a great question. Thank you, Sister Nurain. So the reactive and non-reactive really has to do with, how you react to other impulses, like whether it's other people or life, like events. It's really has to do with your immediate expression in the moment, right? So, for example, there are people who lose a loved one. In some cases, grief for one person may be anger, shouting, just instant like shock and absolute devastation that's fully expressed, a breakdown, right? Completely falling apart, right? And because they cannot help that their emotions just take over. That would be a highly reactive, temperament, likely a sanguine or a choleric is going to be reactive that way. Whereas in the same family system, children of the same, for example, parent, their temperaments are different. You will find the stoic, quiet, doesn't drop a single tear ever, like in front of people especially, will just be handling other people. And you're thinking, wow, this one is crying and bawling in the corner, tears, like red-faced. This one is, well, it's temperament, because they're not ready to react to the loss. Will they at some point on their own terms? Sure. But they're processing. And the process for some people, it's like an intellectual process that overrides the emotional reaction. Whereas others are more emotionally reactive, and then they'll process and make peace with the loss later. So it's really, that's what it comes down to. How do you react in the moment to people, life events? And then, your own self-expression in your own time is obviously an extension of that as well, because it's part of your temperament.
Oh, subhanAllah. That just makes me think of how that just totally flipped my perspective. I mean, even though like I should say the cultural perspective that people have, right? So the one who is not crying right away is seen as like, oh, the hard-hearted one, or
Exactly.
the one who is too loud is the quiet, like they're impressed by the quiet ones, like how do they keep it all together all the time, they're the wise ones. So I know I'm like going to tangents right now, but that it kind of makes me angry that we didn't know this before.
No, I love that you mentioned this, because part of, honestly, the healing that comes along with learning this is, yes, resolving our own biases, our prejudices, our cultural biases and prejudices, the things that we've been taught to just judge others, and to disable that and say, you know what, I don't know what's going on with that person, but why do I feel that I can interpret their behavior and assume the worst? Because it's, if we're being fair and honest and just doing husna dhan, there's no problem there. But oftentimes what happens is, when you have a very self-centered worldview and you only understand your own emotions and you think you're the best at everything, then you will apply a judgment towards other people, because you're trying to understand them through your process, right? Whereas this says, wait a second, there's variety in human expression, human temperament, human behavior. Maybe your way works for you, but you don't have the right to presume that's just because someone's not doing it your way, it's not good enough, or it's par or whatever. So yeah, you're absolutely right that it will make you reanalyze everything you've ever thought about other people, and then bring that question back to yourself in terms of really, before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anyway, like acquiring that prophetic character of wanting good for people and assuming the best for people, and also having humility to not presume anything of others. I don't know why they are the way they are, but at least you can appreciate the positive strengths, and leave the things that we don't know, just leave them. Don't judge.
Oh, subhanallah. We have a question here. How do we deal with teens? Do you have any recommendations or du'as for a struggling single mom of 2 teen girls? Yeah, let me make it easy for you, sister.
I mean, so again, because my, I guess, life's work is with with trying to promote emotional intelligence, promote empathy. This is one of the tools that every parent should have. You should you first learn it really well, temperament, teach it to your daughters. If you're struggling with your daughters, likely it's because we don't have the language to interpret behavior. So we need tools. This is one of those tools, right? The other thing that girls really need to do a deep dive in is understanding the impact of hormone on behavior and mood. And if the whole family is more well-read on, especially if they're adolescents, that phase, and just all the different things that are happening, I feel like it'll give validation to the young girls. They don't have to over-explain themselves when they kind of maybe snap a little bit or are snippy, or just don't want to, participate in a family event. People aren't going to take that, hopefully, personally, because they'll realize, okay, they may actually be going through something right now, because hello, this is a pretty serious life phase that they're in. So it just promotes, I think, more empathy. So if, as a parent, as a mom, I'm sure you may have had discussions about certain things, but I think it would be nice to maybe prepare some literature, look at some reading together, do some, deep dive studies together, maybe even classes you can look into exploring with your daughters, where you're all learning together and you're really trying to create a culture of empathy and understanding. And that should, I think, provide a lot of healing, because it gives you language and it gives them language to just be able to understand one another more. May Allah make it easy.
Ameen. And Ustadha, this is something that you actually mentioned in Texas. I don't remember like the specific moment, but it was part of a story that you shared about yourself and about you being in high school. And then you mentioned something that stuck with me, because I also am a girl mom. And you said that if you are not able to, for any reason, whether your relationship is just, needs healing, it's a bit damaged at the moment, or you're not well, for whatever reason, if you are not able to facilitate something for your girls, like just have that, even having that simple conversation or researching something, outsource it. Find people in your community.
Absolutely.
Inshallah, Allah will connect you with them. There are people who are willing to help. And in fact, it is our obligation as community members to be there for each other. But you have to take the first step. So you were the one actually who mentioned something along those lines. And I just, subhanAllah, I never remember anything. So this is great.
No, jazakallah khair for mentioning that, because it's actually an important reminder that, yeah, there's sometimes we're going to have to call on our friends or other adult mentors that we can ask to just, take over a little bit. And that's what, raising the village kind of is, right? That raising children requires a village. And so sometimes we do need to call on those reinforcements in the form of our friends and other people, leaders, who can maybe talk through certain difficult issues with our teens, because the natural disposition of teenagers, and this is where every parent really needs to kind of just remember, it's not personal. The natural disposition of a teenager is to separate from their parents in order to forge their own identity. So what you think is rebellion is not rebellion. They're not trying to be disrespectful and because they don't listen to everything you say. They're not, it's just they want to be their own person. And if you're always dictating to them and telling them what to do and advising them, it may just get too much for them, because it's like, I don't know who I am. Everything I do is what my mom and dad tell me. So what happens is they may push back a little bit, and then that causes a real big communication rift between teens and parents. And the parents, like, they throw their hands in the air, I don't know what to do, and the teenagers just upset. But once you realize, I need to, when I see those cues from my teen where they don't want to talk to me as much and they're kind of separating a little bit, it's not personal. What I'm going to do, because I'm still a caring, loving parent, is like by proxy, I'm going to parent by calling on a reinforcement that I entrust with my child to say, hey, can you have a conversation with my kid? Just figure out what's going on there. And then hopefully working as, collaboratively, you'll be able to come up with some solutions, but not to just become emotional. And this is where, again, temperament theory is helpful, because it helps you to stay in the rational state, right? The rational mind is, for the believer, this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us. We're supposed to be using our quwwat al-aqliya, the rational mind, in all of our choices and decisions, but we can be overridden by the emotional, the quwwat al-ghadabiyya and the shahwaniyya, the quwwat al-shahwaniyya, the appetitive soul, the appetitive part of our nature, and the emotional part of our nature can override the rational faculty. And so when you have a parent that's triggered or angry or personalizes their teen's behavior, they're not acting in a rational state of mind, which is necessary for parents, right? We have to be leaders and teachers. So once you study all of these things, it kind of, again, brings you back to just snap out of your own, emotional state and say, I need to do what's best for my teen. And like you said, that may require me stepping out of the way a little bit and letting another adult come in and helping.
Yeah, subhanAllah. I hope, inshallah, that will help so many parents out there. Sorry, I want to ask, maybe we have time for a couple more questions, inshallah.
I do. We
I'm
can
so
go.
curious.
Yeah, we can go for as long as you need, but 2:30 would be a good cutoff. I don't want to, leave anybody who's asking questions like, let's just get to as many as we can. And I'll try to be more brief in my answers. I'm sorry.
Okay, sure. No, sure. Amazing, mashallah. So Sister Amira is asking, I'm so curious, as where would the 4 Sahaba fall on this scale? Oh my gosh, Sister Amira, you asked my question.
Excellent.
Wonderful.
So Yeah, actually, I don't have it on this slides, but I think I do have one where it has them. So, subhanAllah, because I have actually on my wall here all the 4 of the Khulafa. So if we look at, so Sayyidina Abu Bakr, let's actually do like a pop quiz. When you think of a very loyal, quiet, stoic Sahabi from the 4 Khulafa, I mean, from those 4, who do you think of? Quiet, stoic, resilient, but incredibly loyal, very focused on the mission. Who comes to mind? Are we getting answers?
My quiz. You can also write in the comments. But okay, I'm being quizzed live on here.
Yeah, I want to see what the comment, if anybody's participating. Okay, and then I'll give you the descriptions and you guys can answer. Okay, so that first one, quiet, right? Intense, stoic. Stoic is really important. Good, mashallah. So there we go. We got the answer. So it's absolutely Sayyidina Abu Bakr. So Sayyidina Abu Bakr is our melancholic temperament. Okay, really intense, quiet, stoic, loyal. And they're fiercely loyal, but on the mission, right? He was always about the mission, right? Preserving the mission. Alhamdulillah. So we have Sayyidina Abu Bakr. Then if I describe someone who's intense, who you may even be a little intimidated by. When you think of him, who do you think of? Intimidation, but very strong leadership skills. Get out the way, right? If he's on your path, I mean, we know from the hadith, right? That Iblis would actually leave the path if he saw Sayyidina Umar approaching. Of course, Sayyidina Umar. So alhamdulillah, I'm making it easy here. But yeah, Sayyidina Umar. So he would be the choleric, right? Definitely loud, definitely makes his presence known. But again, about the mission, getting things done, and very capable of leadership. I mean, very, very strong leader, right? Now we get to our the other 2, right? The remaining 2, super sociable, wise, but also very loving, very funny. There's some humor there. Who do you think of? Also, they're all leaders, right? They're all khulafa, so they all have the leadership quality, but I'm just kind of highlighting the traits that are common to them. Who do you think of? Okay. I'm still waiting for more responses. So Sayyidina Ali actually would be your sanguine. Your sanguine is Sayyidina Ali. He was known to be very cheerful, very bubbly, just kind of like a light person, but lovable to everyone. So he is your sanguine temperament. And then the final one, Sayyidina Uthman, he's your phlegmatic. Uthman is, mashallah, the angels were shy of Uthman. He was so quiet, timid, but also very strong in his own right, for sure. But if you look at their descriptions, they pair really well with the 4 temperaments. And a lot of them, even like Sayyidina Umar, we're understanding him from the beginning of his journey, right, as the choleric. But by the time he passes on, you can't describe Sayyidina Umar as choleric, right? He was very emotional. He was very soft and gentle. And that's where the wisdom of the prophetic balance comes in, is that when you spend your life working on wherever your starting point is, right? We all have a starting point, but you work your life towards becoming more like the Prophet ﷺ, you will, find that balance. And that's the beauty of looking at their trajectories. Like, where do they start off? And by the time, they had passed on, you could see absolute balance. And that's why they are who they are. So alhamdulillah.
Yeah, subhanAllah. That was so refreshing. I'm just, gosh, so much to learn, so much to talk about. SubhanAllah.
It is. And I know we're squeezing a lot in a short amount of time, but thank you everyone for your excitement over this. It's exciting for me, mashallah.
Yeah. So Sister Iman is asking, is there a system or a way of teaching to calibrate our temperament to match the prophetic temperament?
Excellent. I mean, yes, I know it's going to sound really simple, but it's not. When we study, for example, the Shama'il, when we go through, Qari Iyad's Ashifa, and you're looking at these descriptions of the Prophet ﷺ, which, we have so much detail about everything from the way he walked and talked, how he dressed, how he spoke to people of different backgrounds. The level of detail we have about his life, as we know, alhamdulillah, is such a gift. But the point of all of that is really to take those mental notes. Where are you on the spectrum of how close you are to his model, like his behavior? If he smiled and he was gentle and he was kind and compassionate, but you're a person who those are not qualities that people would describe you as. And some of us have to be honest with ourselves. There are people amongst us who might have beautiful hearts, but their physical presentation doesn't reflect that, because they haven't overcome their whatever it is, whether it's, this is just the way they were raised, their cultures, but we kind of get fixed into certain behaviors because it's just what I've always been like. Well, okay, but the Prophet ﷺ is the model. So you, like everybody, has to start working towards that goal. So maybe you need to smile a little bit more. Maybe you need to come out of the intense choleric or intense melancholic temperament, right? Which are on the extremes. They're intense for that reason. And you need to bring that intensity down. So that means being a little bit more lighthearted, being a little bit more, not as rigid about following the rules and harping on every little detail, being overly pedantic. Don't do that. How about letting things go a little bit, being a little bit more flexible and cheery and welcoming people. So there's ways when we look at his life that we can analyze our own behavior with, and then just start making those slow changes. And it's going to be a lifelong process. So this doesn't have to happen overnight. And that's why acquiring beautiful character is a lifelong pursuit. We all have to be doing it all the time at different, again, stages.
Oh, subhanAllah. That makes me realize that the importance of reflection. Like you actually, you can't just, be walking or like you're being busy in your day and be like, oh yeah, I should smile more, and then just get back to it, right? So it can't be a passing thought, right? Like you must sit down and like think about it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Intentionality. Yeah, no, I love that. You're right. You have to be intentional, and you have to be doing it for the sake of Allah. And you have to kind of say, well, I'm really far from his example, and Allah wants us to be like him. And so even though this is how I've always been, I'm 35, I'm 23, I'm 43, whatever it is, I need to just at least try, because in the effort of overcoming your rigidity to try to emulate the Prophet ﷺ is so much reward that you're missing out on. When you're struggling to do something that's not second nature to you at all, and it's really hard for you, but you're doing it because you want to be more like the Prophet ﷺ, you're just opening up mountains of reward for yourself. And likewise, if you don't do it because you're like, I'm, set in my ways, and you're also cutting yourself off from easy rewards. And in terms of, the other layer to this, because these are kind of like personal objectives, but the other thing that I think we really need to remember is dawah. For those of us in the West, we are supposed to be doing dawah. What kind of dawah are we doing if we're not at least approachable? And some temperaments are less approachable than others. And so that's why, for the sake of dawah, we also have to work on really bringing more balance. Because if you're not, again, very approachable, and people don't feel like they can come and talk to you because you're so quiet and you're so reserved. And this is a challenge in the modern world too, because these devices have created a barrier for people that we've gotten very comfortable with, right? It's like, oh, you get into an elevator, you get into a subway, you go into a public place, everybody's on their phone because nobody wants to talk. Nobody wants to interact with other people. That's not doing dawah. So we have to also factor in the collective responsibility we all have as Muslims living in a non-Muslim, majority land, of doing our dawah through overcoming our rigid qualities and our temperaments.
Yeah, subhanAllah. Yeah. Sorry, I need to write it down on my sticky note as a reminder. Like, it's not about you. It really isn't. It's not about me. It's, subhanAllah. Okay. I want to give other people a chance to ask questions. This is a really cool question. Sister Amna is asking, what are resources you recommend to learn more about ways to balance out our temperament? So I would just kind of also mention, like, what are some, general resources or your favorite resources that if someone wants to start going deeper into this topic, where can they start, inshallah?
Yeah, you know what? I'm sorry. I was supposed to bring it, and I don't think I did. But there is a book called "The Temperament That God Gave You or Gave Me." Gave you or gave me? I can't remember. But that's the book that all of our teachers have recommended. It's a Christian text, but it's all the same. The theory and the science is the same across the board. But I would definitely start there. It's very fascinating. It just gives you more detail. I kind of did an overview, but you'll learn a lot about each temperament there. They actually may even have a quiz in the book or online. There's quizzes that you can take to kind of figure out like where you are in the range, of the different temperaments. So I would start there. And then the book that I had in my slides, New Medicine, I think it's called. Sorry, I'm going to just quickly go back to that. The book that was published a few years ago. It's called Avicenna's Medicine, a new translation. This is, oh, great, you have it. Thank you. This is a book that has a whole section really that goes into the temperaments as well. So I would recommend this book as well. And it's got great history too. And then there's a lot more from the medical perspective too, for those who are interested in that.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair for that. Thank you so much. And I would like to add a resource, Ustadha Hosai's workshops and classes. Follow her on social media so you are up to date. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, because these are tools that we need, subhanAllah. Just this program right now, I'm so blessed because this is the knowledge that I needed right now, subhanAllah, So I am just so excited to use it in real time, inshallah. Okay, we have another question right here. Sorry, I'm just trying to see if I can. There. Oh, okay, there we go. Bismillah. Sister Noor is asking, how do we motivate ourselves and children? When do we let things go, and when should we be firm? Where should the balance be?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I do encourage parents to learn this temperament theory with your children, to learn it with them, because once you have the tool in your home, it's such an easy way to explain things to them in a context that young children especially will understand. And I remember, I think it was Sheikh Hamza or one of our teachers who mentioned, it was Sheikh Hamza, that when his children were younger, the wisdom of this tool is that when they would behave out of character, let's say they have a sanguine child who suddenly gets mad because their brother or sister's, using a toy and now they're fighting and it's aggressive. Instead of coming down on his children and, labeling them or being critical, what he would do is he would dissociate the temperament as being like an influence over the child. Like, oh, so he would kind of jokingly say, oh, so Mr. Choleric came out today, And what that would do for the young child is make them feel like responsible, right? That they, instead of, there being a harsh criticism, like, oh, you were being so, rude and kind of using harsh language that the child would feel is attributed to themselves, by blaming the temperament, right? It's kind of like a way of saying you're responsible for letting that temperament out, but it was the temperament's fault, for behaving that way. And I think for young children, that's a really good way to redirect them to better their behavior, right? Because they don't quite understand sometimes why they get moody, why they get upset by certain things. They don't have that, that ability to comprehend a lot of that behavior. So it's easier for redirecting them to better behavior to just use the temperament theory. So I would say definitely, and then if you wanted to motivate them, for example, you could, obviously use them in a positive way. The same choleric temperament could be used to say, hey, let's get all of us get our choleric hats on today because we have a lot of things to get done and there's a lot of energy. And so it's a unifying system, because we're all in it. We're all temperamental. And I think it really can work to bring that sort of cohesion in the family around a system that offers the tool of language to understand ideas, and hopefully give way for expression too of feelings, because once you understand the system well and your children understand the system, hopefully they'll know when they're feeling a certain way, and they'll be able to express to you that, you know what, I'm kind of going through some stuff right now, so I'm in a bit of a melancholic phase. Please just leave me alone. I'll come out of it, hopefully. But, kind of just, I don't know, giving them, again, the ability to express their feelings in a way that is shared within the family, so that they're not going too deep into personal things, but rather using something that I think everybody can understand.
Yeah, subhanAllah. Yeah, and I hope these words get very trendy, hashtag feeling choleric today.
Yeah,
Inshallah. That's so
totally.
cool. Yeah, and also just having these tools and this language, doesn't it also just elevate us in like our, the way we speak? It's so
Absolutely.
refreshing to kind of, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And I feel like just adding these 4 new words to our vocabulary will automatically kind of elevate our family's culture and standard and the way we speak to each other.
Yes,
And when
yes,
it
and
travels,
yes.
yeah, subhanAllah.
No, I love that. I'm so glad you said that, because 100% we have to elevate our language for our children. Otherwise, we just fall into the same things that we hear throughout
Yeah.
our families and cultures. And it doesn't really, those aren't empowering. Like you said, this is empowering, it's validating, and it's also equalizing, it's humanizing. Instead of this hierarchical like sort of relationship where, and it's important, hierarchy is important in a family system, children need to know that their parents should be obeyed, but when it comes to the nafs, regulating our nafs, controlling ourselves, acquiring beautiful character, we should be all in the same boat. Parents should be vulnerable to say, I have my shortcomings that I need to work on, my choleric comes out, or my melancholic is coming out, or I need to be a little bit more phlegmatic, or maybe I should attend this family event because I haven't attended the past few, so I need to bring my sanguine forward a little bit, but kind of bringing this equalizing terminology where children feel seen and heard, and parents also feel seen and heard, as opposed to what often happens, which is, you don't understand me and I don't understand you, and then nobody's talking to each other, or it's a lot of under the breath astaghfirullah comments
Yeah.
or curses in some households. We
Yeah.
don't want that.
Yeah, subhanAllah. Thank you so much for that. I believe we have one more question left, or 2 actually. Sorry. Yes, Sister Rashida is asking, can this be used with neurodivergent children?
I think so. I mean, sure. I feel like, we're all a little eclectic in our own different way. And I feel like just bringing the fact that there's like a fluidity about this, I think may even be really, welcoming to someone who's neurodivergent, because it's not black and white. It's kind of like you may feel this way one day and you may feel this way another day. So it might allow for even more sense of like understanding when you apply this tool. So I would definitely explore it.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. This is an anonymous question. This person is asking, how can I use these 4 temperaments to help my son who has had cancer and no longer talks with me to progress in life?
Ya Allah. Ya Allah, may Allah make it easy. I would love to know like his age. That would be helpful, just because, how deep of a conversation can you have if he's a child, God forbid, or if he's an older adult? There may be a lot more healing that has to happen, because we don't know when someone goes through a terminal. I mean, I shouldn't assume stuff for all that it's terminal, but within a serious illness, when someone's going through a serious illness, we don't know the conversations that they're having with internally, right? And it is natural when you feel isolated in your suffering or pain to not want to talk, and maybe to shield your parents because they're feeling your pain, So I think that's a very natural thing for a child, and even an adult, a parent who's going through the same thing. A lot of parents do not share their states with their children because they don't want suffering. They don't want them to suffer. So you may not be the person that your child is ready to talk through what they've gone through in terms of their illness, But I would say definitely help them to find someone. And this is where counseling, a therapist, even a spiritual guide could really help them to process what's happened to them. Because, you know, I mean, again, I don't know the age of the child or the son, or the duration. Like, is this really long pain that they've suffered through? Do they have to go through chemo? There's a lot of questions I don't know, but all that context would offer is whatever they've gone through. If they feel like they can't talk to you, don't again feel that first of all personalize that, but just maybe look to different routes where they can at least talk to someone. And that you can get a better, broader idea of what's going on with them. And then from there, you'd have to figure out how to heal the personal relationship. Or if it's not a matter of healing, at least bring some more open communication and dialogue between you and him. But I'm sorry, without those other questions, it's hard to answer. Specifically.
No, subhanAllah. I hope that helps this person, inshallah, to at least go towards the right direction, inshallah.
Yeah.
Okay, last question, inshallah. If someone is an ambivert, I was pronounced wrong. How do you figure out which category you are in?
Great. So the ambivert is actually, very, I think, easily explained. Like, for example, I'm an ambivert. I have the sanguine of extroverted, and then the phlegmatic that is an introverted. So I kind of explained, but it's like you're going to present extroverted on some cases, introverted in some cases, and that's just further proof of the temperament theory, that temperamentally we change based on environment, group, mood, age, life phases. There's a lot of things that impact where we are with our temperaments. So it's not that you have to fit yourself into some other category. It's that you need to figure out what temperament specifically are you when you are in your extroverted phase, right, as an ambivert, and which temperament are you when you're introverted. And that'll give you some more definition, right? Are you a sanguine? Are you choleric? Are you a phlegmatic or a melancholic? So start there. And then remember that wherever you don't see a lot in terms of your temperament, those are areas that you need to work on. Like I mentioned, I'm married to a melancholic, and alhamdulillah, I really appreciate his stoicism. Like, he is my husband. Like, he's very quietly going through things, whereas I'm very expressive. Like, I'm always like having to say everything. But then there's times where I see that I need to dial it down, right? Maybe I don't need to over explain everything or overshare everything. Maybe I can internally go inward a little bit. And, even in our worship, that's what the worship is for, right? For us to communicate with Allah. So there are ways that we can observe these other, temperaments that maybe we're lacking in as goals, that we need to kind of acquire those strengths within those temperaments. So I'm pretty solid as a sanguine phlegmatic, but I definitely see when it comes to certain areas, I need to challenge myself to bring out my melancholic, and even my choleric. Like, I've always said it, but I'm like, oh, I need cholerics in my life because they light my fire. Like, when I have a lot of projects, a lot of things I want to get done. And it's only when I've had a choleric in my life that pushes me that I get those things done. But then I think I have these conversations with myself all the time that, I'm at the age where I should really try to find my own choleric within me and just get things done. So alhamdulillah, I'm getting there. But yeah, that's how you want to understand, even if you're an ambivert,
Yeah, subhanAllah. No, that was immensely helpful. Thank you to Sister Deborah for asking that. I would like to end with this segment with a comment. Thank you. Sorry, not a question at all, just a comment saying thank you so very much for hosting Ustadha Hosai and for this incredibly beautiful topic. I cannot express how much this was needed and how much it touched my heart. Thank you so much. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you with all the gifts he saves for those he loves most. Ameen. Ameen.
That is so sweet. Barakallah fiki. Mashallah. Barakallah fikum. Mashallah. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Ameen wa ijma'in to all of you. Thank you, Fatima. It's been lovely to catch up with you after last year or a year.
Yeah,
and I hope
thank
to
you
see
so
you
much.
again.
Yeah, thank you so much for, taking the time out to, I need a part 2 to this. We all need like a proper workshop on this, inshallah.
Well, if you don't mind, if I can do a quick plug, I will be in your neck of the woods in a couple of weeks. I don't know if you know about our event at the Wellness Conference with the Rahma Foundation and Zaytuna College, but I'm going to be speaking about Mizaj. So if
Oh,
you are
wonderful.
in Houston in February 16th, I think, or was that weekend, I will be there, inshallah, and we're going to be talking about this. So
Oh, amazing. I got happy for a second when you said my neck of the woods, because my neck of the woods is Pakistan or New
oh,
Jersey.
you're in Pakistan. Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. For some
So,
reason, I thought you were in Houston because I met you
no, but
there.
see, now you've planted the seed, and now I'm bringing you to Pakistan, inshallah. So we need to make that happen.
Oh my God. My husband will be very
Inshallah.
happy, especially if you're anywhere near Lahore.
Yeah, not too far, not too far. Yeah. So no, that's happening, inshallah. Not, I don't know how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is gonna make it happen. So that's amazing. But I hope that goes well. And everyone who is there near, in Houston, please do not miss this. How amazing is this, mashallah. And please follow Ustadha Hosai on social media. That is how to, be in the loop of all of these amazing programs she is doing. Thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for coming here and making us more knowledgeable. I feel smarter. I feel so much smarter.
Thank you.
Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khairan. It's always an honor, always a pleasure. May Allah bless all of you. And yeah, I look forward to our next meeting, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah, how amazing was that? We are so honored to have all of these amazing teachers with us here every Friday. We would love to know, and I know a lot of you have been doing this already today. Thank you so much for interacting and appreciating and asking questions. We'd love to know, how has today's discussion impacted you? Please share your responses in the comments. Help us to, continue to improve our programs, because this is for you. We are doing this for you, our virtual community members here at Celebrate Mercy. Alhamdulillah. Inshallah. At this, also another way, I've got great news. Our Launch Good campaign, mashallah, we are almost to our goal of $300,000, inshallah, for the campaign of transforming hearts and building bridges and sharing the Prophet's example with millions, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Please do not miss this opportunity to be a part of this. Even if it's a single dollar, please contribute to this mission. You can get more details about this campaign by going to launchgood.com/cm, inshallah. And if you will, here's a QR code, which you can also use to donate very quickly. Inshallah, you can, pause and, go back as well to scan this, inshallah. And if you would like to sponsor a program, and get the ajr, get the reward for every single person who's benefiting from this, please visit celebratemercy.org/sponsor. And our next event, you have the opportunity to sponsor our next event, which is going to be on this Sunday, Ascent After Anguish, our annual Isra and Miraj program, where we reflect on the Prophet ﷺ's night's journey and ascension. Please RSVP at celebratemercy.com/ascend. Inshallah. And of course, our Umrah trips, our trips department is active throughout the year. Please, this picture is from our recent Umrah trip that happened during Thanksgiving break. And if you are interested in learning more about our trips, you can go to celebratemercy.org/trips. Also, if you have already gone and you still want to be connected, or you can't go first, any number of reasons, you can help someone else do an Umrah. You can assist our assistance fund by going to celebratemercy.org/assist. You can help support 15 Muslims on this journey through the Sirah, inshallah. And before we end this program, I have a very special dua request for everyone here today, inshallah. Please join me in making a dua for Sister Lubna Johar, who is a dear family member of our Celebrate Mercy team member, Summer Malik. And Sister Lubna was recently diagnosed with an illness. So please raise your hands and join me in dua for her. Ya Allah, grant Sister Lubna shifa. Replace her pain and comfort with comfort and her fears with tranquility. Shower her with your mercy and make this a means of purification and elevation in rank. Grant patience to her loved ones and bless her with good health. Ameen, ameen. Oh Allah, bless every single person who is suffering this ummah, who is sick at the moment. Sister Lubna and Summer, you are in our prayers. Inshallah, may Allah, make this a time of ease for you. Inshallah, we are all praying for you. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us today. May Allah bless you and your families. And thank you so much for your du'as. Please continue to remember our team in your du'as. We will see you, inshallah, on Sunday for our Isra and Miraj program. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.